EVP of Client Strategy at Stream Companies, Drew Diehl. Welcome, Drew, to the show.
Hey, Drew.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Drew, how's biz? And tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the world.
Yeah, so I actually came into automotive as a young SEO professional and basically cut my teeth in learning all things digital. My background is really on the entire paid side and now oversee our client strategy team, basically trying to deliver as many strategic advertising decisions to our clients. Generally, biz is good. I think September is a tough month year over year, typically. And we have some of that data and we try to stay ahead of the tough months and make recommendations to keep everybody afloat.
Yeah. So it does sort of feel like in some areas, and maybe it's geographically driven, like some are struggling to meet and exceed unit count sales, what they have in the past. Maybe lead volume is down a little bit. What do you attribute that to? We've had several guests talk about lead volume, digital leads being down currently.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to kind of paint with a broad brush, I think, because the market, the brand, how dealers operate, what their inventory count looks like, all of that makes such a significant difference on what lead volume might look like month in and month out, as well as customer sentiment. I think in the past year we've dealt with tariff conversations and EV tax credits and all of that, and that macro news affects customers and how they're shopping and who's looking for a vehicle so much. Most people aren't in the day-to-day automotive life like all of us. So they see something about tariffs and they're like, okay, not a good time to buy a car. And so those sort of macro impacts typically do have a big impact on lead volume. And I think people do hold out for some of the sales events that come at the end of the calendar year. I think that makes an influence on a month like September.
Do you think there's a lot of customers that are still sitting on the sidelines from tariffs? I mean, we definitely had the pull ahead effect early on in tariffs. People were afraid of what would be coming. And then as it's come, do you have any data or thought processes to talk about what percentage of the population might be just sitting out waiting?
More qualitative than quantitative on that. I think it's people who aren't necessarily at need. Over the pandemic and inventory issues, I've sort of coined a term of always in market. It's people who, they're myself included. I have a 2015 Honda Civic that I have no car payments on. Sure. Would I love to go get a new car? Yeah. Do I want to take on the car payment? Maybe not. And so I'm waiting kind of for the right time. And I think there's a large portion of the population that kind of falls into that same bucket where, yeah, they would love to upgrade to a new car, but I'm going to wait for it to be perfect conditions.
So it's interesting. Stream is a huge company. You're a massive company. You do business on the advertising side with a lot of dealerships nationwide. Sure. Talk to us a little bit. We've talked on this show, Yuli and I have a lot about AI, Chat GPT. How does technology in today's automotive market space affect and impact dealers' view of digital advertising and like, is it changing the way dealers are spending money? Is it creating problems? Are there misunderstandings? What are you seeing in that marketplace?
Yeah, I think as all of that comes out and people start to use ChatGPT or Google AI overviews in their own lives, their immediate reaction is, oh my goodness, every single potential customer is going to do this exact same thing. What am I going to do with my Google spend? And in reality, most people are not necessarily shopping any different than they have in the past 10, 15, 20 years. But I think that is going to shift as more people get used to this type of technology. And largely, I have given a lot of presentations on this topic to different OEMs to really get the understanding and the education of what's going to change. And largely, Google makes so much revenue from their advertising business. So even with the introduction of AI overviews and different AI large language models, Google is not going to sacrifice their main revenue generator for this product. So right now, they're working on, they've announced that they're going to start incorporating ads into AI overviews, which are those little AI summaries at the top of the search engine results page. They've announced they're going to start including those ads on that feature. I think it will be largely AI Max or Performance Max campaign types. And what I think the downstream kind of effect will be is that there'll be fewer clicks going to dealer websites, but the same competition will be there. So the average cost per click, in my opinion, is going to increase as more advertisers are competing for that single click. So the volume will go down, but the price will go up.
So, Drew, if I'm a dealer watching this program today, seeing that
Yeah.
coming, how does this impact my decision making, both with an advertising firm and also with the way I spend money in digital leads and advertising?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we always talk about is having a balanced budget, and that balanced budget is not the same every single month. So being willing to kind of adapt, and a month like September, we talked about it at the top of this segment, typically tends to be a slower month. So we want to be dynamic and kind of spread our dollars thin. We see a lot of times when dealers come to us that they're spending most of their budget on third party aggregator sites and Google ads, which is fine, but you're missing that kind of top of funnel activity and those users who are maybe not ready to buy. So you're not necessarily refilling your funnel. You're only paying for that lowest funnel user, which is great. But as that lowest funnel user is getting competed for, you're missing on those top of funnel customers.
All right, we want to talk Retail Ready, which is a new
Absolutely.
program you have. But before we get into that, one last question as it relates to tech AI. Some dealers say, hey, because of the way AI works and educates, I think I can take on more of the advertising function. Is that true? What warnings would you give to dealers that may attempt to do that? And are you, are companies like yourself having to hustle in different ways to stay relevant and to make sure that they stay in front of dealers to help them accomplish their goals?
Yeah, I think that sort of in-house model can work, but you need the infrastructure behind it. Like, to be honest with you, I spend most of my day and outside of working hours reading about marketing, not necessarily just automotive. So in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say, let me come into your sales room and tell your salespeople how to sell. That's not my expertise. But my expertise is in the digital world and understanding all of the changes and the levers to pull. And so it can work. You just need that underlying infrastructure to kind of be fully dedicated to running that marketing in-house.
Yeah. So, Drew, what is Retail Ready? What problem does it solve that dealers can't fix with their website CMS alone?
Yeah, so I would say Retail Ready is kind of a rallying cry that we've adopted that has also turned into a product suite. So really the main, at our offices in Malvern, Pennsylvania, we have something written on the wall that's drive retail traffic. It's really, really simple, but our whole mindset is how do we help dealers get to market faster and better and more efficient? And so within the Retail Ready platform, we've created the automotive incentives platform. That's a subsection of the Retail Ready ideal. And really the whole thought process and what we found is that most dealers on average don't get their specials up until 7 days into the month. When you annualize that,
that's a delay. That's
3
a
months
huge
out of the
delay.
year. 3 months out of the year that they don't have specials on their site. And so our
Why?
Retail Ready, that's a great question because you're taking 3 separate areas and kind of focuses. 1, the dealer needs to get their incentives put together. 2, they need to have somebody build the creative. And then 3, somebody needs to go take that creative and those specials and physically get them on the site. And so what we've done with Retail Ready is basically combine all of those elements. And all we need is a dealer, once they put in the specials, we have everything basically built out dynamically to be FTC compliant, state, national, full compliance, OEM compliant. And once we get those specials, we can spin up the creative and basically get it on the site on both the homepage and the specials page within 4 hours of the same day.
Are you able to quantify the impact to advertising, production, sales, closes at a traditional dealership of being able to turn it that fast? You look at that 7-day turn, that's a waste of the incentive money that the OEMs hand out. If you can turn it in 4 hours, there's got to be a quantifiable benefit of that.
Yeah. So from like a downstream effect, what we've been measuring from like a KPI standpoint and kind of building out case studies is we can't control everything else on the site. But what we've measured is that we've seen that customers dealers that are using Retail Ready, the users that are going from the homepage to the specials page it increases significantly. Because we're able to, draw attention to those specific incentives, those specials. Now they're going to the specials page, and it's a loose correlation, but something that we're actively tracking is the conversion rates of users who go to a specials page that have retail ready specials on there versus clients who aren't using retail ready. And the conversion rate for those users is against the control group is 90% increase in conversion rate, which again, there's so many elements on a site that we don't
That's
control
huge.
with retail ready,
Yeah.
but it's a loose correlation that I think is really important.
So Drew, when you talk about incentives, you talk about creating creative and getting it out that quickly. Co-op is a nightmare sometimes, right? Because you got so many hoops to jump through, and you've got to file for it, make sure you get reimbursed on it. Like, how do you ensure that the creative that you're doing will ultimately be approved for co-op payment? And then how do you follow through, or what resources or support do you give dealers to help with that piece? There are entire businesses that are focused on co-op repayment. It's a challenge.
Yeah, no, 100%. And to your point of, dealers bringing stuff in-house, we have a dedicated co-op team that their entire job is focused on getting dealers the most co-op money possible. And we have an entire compliance team built within our larger creative department. And really, those two teams have worked very closely together to pretty much understand what are the national, FTC, state compliance issues that dealers run into. And we build that into the platform to make sure that everything is fully compliant for every OEM and every single place you can maybe trip up.
Drew, do I put you on the spot and ask you for the best OEM on co-op and the worst OEM on co-op?
I think I'll plead the fifth on that.
All right, fair. I'm just curious. It's a fascinating. It's a fascinating. So what is most likely to trigger a rejection on it? Again, thinking about doing it in-house or trying to do
font size.
That is absolutely one. So before retail ready, I was talking to our team prior to this, and they were saying that the most common issue they saw was actually Toyota dealers not including the cost per $1,000 on their financing offers. And there's so many little details. I think that's the challenge is there's so many potential missteps like font size. But typically what we've seen and kind of the only rejections we've gotten is if the price is below map. That's really all we've run into lately. And luckily, we have everything kind of built into the system to account for, and there's a part of economy of scale. We've been doing compliant offers for dealers for the entire existence of the company. So we know what works and what doesn't.
I have a question operationally here. So you mentioned you have 7 days, let's call it, of dead space on average where people are getting their specials. Now, some of that is up to the operator not acting fast enough. A lot of it is also the OEM extends programs. Like this month we end on a Tuesday, they'll probably extend programs out to whatever day of next month. Are you seeing, and maybe you don't have the answer, is this an edge for someone? Are you seeing most of your dealers giving programs day one, or are you still seeing dealers kind of drag their feet a couple of days and adding to that delay?
Yeah, I'd say it's a mixed bag. I think there are some dealers who they're able to use this tool and get stuff done so quickly that once they have, like, we have customers who will write up the incentives on a napkin and send it to our team, and we're able to get stuff turned around really quick. We have some who are like, okay, great. All I have to do is throw this information in a form and call it a day. It's out of my hand. So I think there still are those operators who delay and, good data in, good data out to some extent, where there is some impetus on them to move quickly and be efficient to get their specials up quicker.
So Drew, last question as we wrap up. We appreciate you being on. What's one action a general manager could take tomorrow, this month, to be more retail ready, even if they don't use Stream as a provider?
Yeah, I think it's really having a plan in place with the key stakeholders of who's owning this process and who's accountable to getting specials up and making sure outside of specials, the website is clean and looks great. Because no dealer is starting their month being like, man, I want to get my specials up in 7 days.
Right.
But the start of the month happens. They're dealing with the close of the previous month. They have all these competing priorities that get in the way. So just having a plan in place and those individuals who are held accountable to really getting that information up on their site accurately.
which I love. That kind of relates back to what Parker talks about in automotive. One of our core values, I think, everywhere is execution, quick
Yep.
execution. We're better when we can do what you're talking about, Drew, and
Yeah.
turn the month,
Mhm.
count the proceeds, and then get up and running with incentives as quickly as possible. So we appreciate you bringing that up as the issue today, Drew Diehl, EVP of Client Strategy at Stream Companies. Thanks for being on the show and sharing your perspectives.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.